Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey all, it's Sarah. Welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. Today we have a coaching call with Laurel and Derrick. This is actually one that I released way back in the beginning of the podcast, back in early 2021. Maybe you've heard it and maybe you haven't. If you have heard it, you might pick up a few new things. I know that sometimes when I listen to something again, I may be in a different stage in my life or having some different thoughts about something and it hits me in a different way and I learned something new. We're doing a re-release partly because not only is this a great episode to listen to again, or if the first time if you haven't heard it, but we are working on a bunch of new podcasts behind the scenes. I'm excited to get those podcasts to you. We'll have a new one, a brand new one for you next week. For the coaching call, Laurel and Derrick have 3 kids. At the time when we taped this podcast, they were 10, 7, and 3. We covered a wide range of issues from power struggles to how to stay patient when you feel like you can't stay patient anymore, to sibling dynamics and sibling issues. It was a really great conversation. I mentioned a couple of resources in it. One is my How to Stop Yelling at Your Kids e-course, and that's totally free to sign up for. It's on my website, reimaginepeacefulparenting.com/stop-yelling, or we'll link to it in the show notes. And the other is a downloadable book, How to Stop Sibling Fights. We'll link to that also, and that's also on my website under the resources tab. Be sure to stick around for part 2, where we check in with Derrick and Laurel and see how things went after they were able to implement some of the strategies we talked about. As always, I would really appreciate it if you could rate and review the podcast and share it with a friend or two. That way we can reach more people and spread the word about peaceful parenting. We've added sponsors to our podcast so we can keep making this podcast and our other free content to support families on their peaceful parenting journey. If you would like to listen to the podcast ad-free, or even if you'd just like to support our work and know you're helping us educate and support the word about peaceful parenting, you can become a supporter on Substack. For the cost of a fancy coffee, you can get the podcast ad-free as well as access to a monthly Ask Me Anything session where I answer your questions and support you. I know there are folks I support on Substack because I believe in the work they're doing and I want to be part of making their work possible and more accessible. I really hope you'll choose to support us. Go to sararosensweet.substack.com or just search up my name and Substack and you'll find it. This podcast is brought to you by the Peaceful Parenting Membership. For a low monthly subscription cost, you get direct access to me twice a week in group coaching drop-in office hours. You also get a library of peaceful parenting lessons, a private community of parents who get it and are on this journey with you, guest expert sessions, and monthly trainings on a theme. Plus, you get access to the past 6 years of materials and resources inside the Peaceful Parenting Membership Library. But why take my word for it? Here's what one of our members had to say. Apologies for the long list of wins. I'm just so happy. After months of investment in the approaches I have learned through Sarah's membership, including access to her through office hours and the Facebook page, the wisdom of the private community, and the comprehensive library of resources with new ones being added every month, available through the membership. I am seeing such tangible results. I am forever grateful for having stumbled upon the membership. Total life changer. To learn more about the Peaceful Parenting Membership, visit reimaginepeacefulparenting.com/membership. Remember, for an ad-free version of this podcast, become our supporter on Substack. Search up Sarah Rosensweet and Substack and you'll find us. Now our feature presentation. Okay, let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Derrick. Nice to meet you. Hi, Laurel.
Hi.
Are you a firefighter, Derrick?
I am, yeah.
I see you've got your sweatshirt.
Yeah. Just a heads up, I may have to jump off if we get a call.
Okay,
So,
well, so
awesome.
nice to meet you guys. So you've got 3, so boy, girl. And what would you like to talk about today?
I think I just love your whole, I've sent Derrick a couple things, but I just love your whole premise of peacefulness and remaining calm when it's easy to get angry. And just some tools for doing that, I guess, like some basic things, because we both like to say we have like, the strikes where we're all calm, 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 and then just and hit
Yeah.
a limit.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just tools for, I guess, for when that happens. We have very typical age appropriate kind of response kids that need to be told 80 times of something. And so it's frustrating. And then how to help them kind of see, without bribing, without threatening discipline, without all of that,
Yeah.
like how to have a better dialogue with our kids, teaching respect and teaching kind of, we do this, you do this. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So, I mean, maybe, okay, so there's always going to be situations where it's hard to stay calm, just being a parent. Like, of course, your kids are going to like push your button sometimes. But rather than, so we do always start with self-regulation. In terms of what I mean by self-regulation isn't that you never get upset. It's that when you do get upset, you know how to calm yourself and take a minute, take a breath, like, whatever you need to do so that you don't yell. Because yelling, hurts our relationship with our kids. As we don't, you mentioned respect. I think there's an old idea of respect that used to mean that kids were afraid of their parents, right? But real respect is that you care what another person thinks. Like that's real respect, right? Like I don't want to do this because I don't want my dad or my mom to be unhappy with me, right? Not that I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I do it, but I care what they think and they care what I think. And that's how I define respect, like true respect. Doesn't mean that you're afraid of somebody, but it means that you care what they think, right? So when we yell, we chip away at that, like in terms of like, yeah, we could get them to do what we want through yelling or threatening things or taking things away, but we're chipping away at our relationship with them. And that's really the only true influence. And as your kids are getting older, you're going to see that like you can control them when they're little, right? Because you can pick them up and move them from one place to another or whatever. But there's a famous quote by a psychologist that says, the problem with using control when kids are young is that you never learn how to influence them, which is what you need as they get older, right? You need to be able to influence them to get them to do what you would like them to do. Like it's all about the relationship. Like that's really what I see as the most important thing is that relationship. So back to what I was saying about yelling, like, yeah, that's really important to be working on that. But there's also like, how do I be more effective so that kids will listen to me and I don't have to ask 80 times, right? Like, how do I get their attention in an effective way? How do I get them to cooperate, the first time or at least the second time? So it's a combination of, yes, learning how to calm yourself and stay calm when things are hard, and also like being more effective as a parent and not asking 25 times because that just trains them to ignore you, right? Like, oh, I don't have to do it until they yell, or I don't have to do it until they've asked me 25 times. If there's something really unpleasant that you had to do at work that you didn't want to do, you also might ignore your boss the first 24 times they ask you until they're really serious, right? I mean, you wouldn't, but you know what I mean? Like if they can keep playing a little bit longer, they will keep playing a little bit longer. So I think what would be helpful is if you gave me some situations that have happened that you find challenging, and then we can kind of like do like a little bit of a deeper dive into like what you could have done instead or what you could do next time if that similar thing comes up.
Yeah. I mean, for my daughter, for example, the middle one, she is so sweet. She's such a feeler. But then when she gets to the point where she's tired, it's hungry, all the things, like I know, but she often doesn't want to pick out her clothes. Something super simple like that. And when I'm making lunches and the other kids are getting ready and all the things, I just have, like, I just have to have her, you're 7, you can pick out clothes, give her some options, and then she'll just lay on the floor and just start screaming, "You don't care? Why don't you pick out my clothes?" And then instead of me taking time that I know I need to, I just tell her, like, "You have 1 minute or else this, you lose this," just start kind of like, this is yesterday, so she doesn't want to get dressed, doesn't want to get her shoes on. "You get my socks, you get all the things." And then I end up picking her up, standing her up. I'm like, "You need to get dressed." And then both of us are frustrated.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. I mean, so first of all, whenever there's just behavior that's difficult in our child, we try and like look below the surface to see like what's causing this behavior, right? Like the symptom you see on the outside is a kid like lying on the floor, refusing to do something that she's perfectly capable of doing herself, right? Like that's like what we're seeing. Like that's like the iceberg, part of the iceberg that's out of the water. But what's underneath that? And to me, I'm seeing a 7-year-old who has a 3-year-old who probably does get help getting dressed, pretty capable older brother. And it's hard to give enough attention to kids when there are 3 of them, right? So what I see this as is a bid for attention from you and a bid for connection from you. I don't know if you listen to my podcast at all, but I did an episode about when kids ask you to do things for them that they can do themselves. And it, 7's a perfect age because you're kind of like, oh my God, you're so capable of getting dressed yourself. Like, what do you mean you want me to put your shoes on you? But if you can kind of shift your mind to think, she's asking me to do something that she can do. She needs my connection and nurturing. Like she's asking for attention from me. Right. And so what I would do is think about, okay, I just spent all this energy yelling at her, trying to get her to do it. What if I could just give her the gift of picking her clothes out for her and getting her dressed? It would probably be quicker. It would start you off on your day on a happier note because you wouldn't have just had a fight before she has to go to camp or school or whatever. And you would have met that need for connection and attention. And I know it's asking more of you in a certain way because you're trying to get lunches made. And this is it's a beautiful example because you'll probably see it in other areas, like what's underneath this difficult behavior, right? Like what's happening here that's making my kid act difficult, because kids really are doing the best they can. Like that's sort of one of our foundational paradigm shifts of peaceful parenting. Like the big like mindset shift is that kids, even when they're being difficult, are doing the best they can. And humans, when they're being difficult, are doing the best they can with whatever resources they have available to them at the time, their past history, challenges that they're experiencing. So if you can just kind of train yourself when someone's being difficult to think, okay, they're doing the best they can. What's going on underneath that's causing this behavior like that? I just want to say one more thing, because later on you might think to yourself, well, wait, Sarah's telling me to like dress my 7-year-old. Like, what about independence? What about like competence and independence? Just to like put your fears aside that kids have such a strong natural drive for independence that you can baby them a little bit and it's not going to wreck them. Like everybody needs a little babying sometimes. Like even you guys probably sometimes, sometimes you just might want like Laurel to make you a coffee and bring it to you in bed. And like, you can get up and get your own coffee, but it's just nice to be babied a little bit and nurtured a little bit. And we can do that safely. And I tell you, I have 14-year-old, 17-year-old, and 20-year-old who are very babied, and they're all like super independent and competent kids. My husband used to say, you're coddling them. I'm like, you know what? I'm nurturing them.
I like
Okay. So I just wanted to, because in case that thought comes up later, like independence is important, but we don't have to push for it.
Yeah. No, I think that's super helpful. And I love one of my good buddies just came out with a book called The Thing Under the Thing, or, the thing beneath the thing.
Right. Oh, I love that.
And so just such a good reminder for that. I think sometimes, like you addressed, is like Laurel is often a single mom, and there is the reality of like, she's got to make lunch. She's got to laundry. She's got to whatever. And so there is sometimes just like the logistical impossibility of, I can't do that and this and get out the door in time and get you to camp on time and here comes carpool. And so sometimes it's just like, it feels like, there's just needs to be better planning. Like you just got to wake up earlier, you got to make lunch before you go to bed, you got to, or whatever, to be able to have the space to respond to the moment. Because the reality is, you never know when it's coming.
Yeah, totally.
And she wants to pick out her own clothes.
Yeah.
And this is one example, right? But there's all these things that creep up. I think another way to describe what Laurel and I were talking about in terms of triggers is like, I feel like we both it really takes a long time to light our fuse. But once it's lit, it's a very short fuse. So like for me, especially, like, dude, I'm like cool as a cucumber. And then all of a sudden wick is lit and I'll explode.
Yeah. I think that's really good to be aware of. And the thing is, if you go forward from today and start looking at your calm, it's sometimes we're actually, what my mentor calls it, gathering kindling. Like we don't realize it, but we're like kind of gathering kindling along the way, a little bit of resentment of like, eye roll, frustration. Like if you can sort of start to tune in a little bit to like, yeah, you're not yelling, but maybe you're getting a little bit more frustrated as it goes on, and like intervening with yourself then of like, okay, I need to take a 5-minute break, or we need to shift gears somehow, or tap each other out or something, because it's very rare that it feels like it comes out of nowhere, but it's very rare that it actually comes out of nowhere. We're just not aware of our building process of that gathering kindling along the way.
No, that's helpful. I have two examples that maybe you can help us with. You can pick one that you think is more important.
Sure. And I just
What-
want to comment on one more thing you said before you go on. Sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but if it's annoying to have to like dress a 7-year-old in the middle of your morning routine and there's, things like that crop up, you can also just make a mental note. Okay, so the what's under the thing, what your friend's book title, what's under the thing that's under the thing or whatever it is this need for more connection and nurturing. So how can I fill that at a time that's more convenient for me, right? Like maybe 7:30 in the morning while I'm trying to get everyone out the door is not a convenient time, but like how can I find another time in the day, especially for my middle child, which, I've got 3 kids too. I know the middle child can be a bit of a stirring the pot kid, at least mine is, like to get his needs met, or he was when he was littler. How can I make sure I am giving her that time that she's asking for in inappropriate times?
Yeah. No, that's helpful. I think part of my challenge at least is just understanding like what is age appropriate. So for an example, our almost 10-year-old literally cannot remember to flush the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, bro, flush the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been this ongoing thing. So that's just one example. There's many where you're 10 years old, dude. You should know how to flush the toilet. And it's like, is that it? And then all the fears come in, right? Like,
Yeah.
is he ADD? Is it, and it sucks because we start throwing all these things out there that we don't even truly know about. But it's like, it seems so simple. Like,
Mhm.
you poop in the toilet, you flush it when you're done.
Yeah.
Like, why is that? And so that'll light up pretty quick the third or fourth time you go in the bathroom and the toilet's not flushed.
Yeah.
And then you talk about it very peacefully and he'll throw something back at you.
So do you have him go back and flush the toilet?
We do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, good. Because
yeah.
I was gonna say, like, if you make it like a tiny bit painful that he forgot and then he has to stop what he's doing and go back and flush it, that might
Yeah.
help him in a nice way, like in a
Yeah.
non-shaming, like kind and firm way. But like, oh, looks like you forgot your, pause your video game. Looks like you forgot to flush the toilet. Can you
Yeah.
please go back and flush the toilet? Also, maybe like put up some signs or something.
Mm.
There we go.
Yeah. Like put up a sign by the sink or put up a sign by the
Please flush
toilet
the
paper.
toilet.
Yeah.
The man.
I mean, there are things that are just like, if they're not important to kids, it's very hard for them to remember to do it. That's
Yeah.
like, or if it's not, like, I can't tell you how many times I've told my boys, don't put wet things in the hamper. They're 17 and 20 and it drives me insane. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how hard is it to not throw a wet washcloth in the hamper, And it just,
Yeah.
they don't care if the things smell like mildew, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and it's very frustrating, but they're not doing it on purpose. They're just,
That's the narrative we write though, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you're just defiant. You're
Yeah.
trying.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, we've talked about this a million times. This is my desire. And you feel
Mhm.
disrespect,
yes.
right? You feel
That is so
very-
insightful of you, Derek, to realize that and realize that that's a trigger for you because it feels like he's doing it on purpose to
Yeah.
disrespect you. And I think just having that awareness and like a mindset shift, like he's not trying to give me a hard time. Like he's just absent-minded and he's 10 and he doesn't care if the poop sits in the toilet. Like he's just not thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other example, which I'm sure is super common, is just like, how do you manage them pushing each other's buttons? They can do
Mhm.
it so, and then
Mhm.
it's literally musical chairs of just explosive, it just happens in all circles. Like it's just, you're driving in the car and it's just like button pushed, explosive, the 3-year-old's just melting and Kira knows exactly what she's doing. And then Blake, Kira, and they just get so much, it seems they just get so much joy out
Mhm.
of really watching their sibling melt and scream. Meanwhile, you're in the front seat trying to drive and it's just like absolute chaos.
Mhm.
And for me, at least, that's when I blow my top and I'll
Yeah.
respond with, and it's, you have to be louder than their meltdown. And then the other thing that my narrative is they're not even really upset or really crying. They're turning that on, to get whatever they need to get. But
Yeah.
I
So
don't know.
classic sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
Classic. Like, how can I get mom or dad to show that they love me more than the other kid? Like, whose side are they going to intervene on? Right. Like, that's just so classic. And, Kira came along and pushed Blake out of his preferred position as the baby and the apple of your eye. And the one who gets all the, he had to learn to share you. with, is it mostly Kira and Aubrey, or does everything roll downhill with all three of them?
It just all triangulates and
Mhm.
crosses over, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
each other's buttons. And you're right. It is always, you always take her side. You
Yeah.
always, you know,
Yeah.
you never, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah. And whenever you hear the words always and never, you know someone's triggered, right? Like they're
Yeah.
not thinking clearly because they're upset and dysregulated. So I think that, that sibling rivalry or resentment rivalry, whatever you want to call it, is always about who do they love more? Will my needs get met? Right? Like, am I going to get enough attention, nurturing? Do they love me as much as they love my brother or my sister? And it's that fear, right? Like the fear is what then drives the button pushing. Like that's what that fear, like, I'm feeling a little insecure right now. I'm going to pick a fight, which is it does not make any sense at all that you would pick a fight hoping that your parent would choose that you're the one who's right and you're the one who's good and you're the one who deserves defending, right? Like it doesn't make any sense at all, but it's this drive to like create conflict in the hopes that you're the one that's going to get chosen. So I could go over sort of quickly my sibling best practices with you guys if you want. That's really helpful for rivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So do you currently have any rules about property or sharing in your house?
Not officially. I mean,
We typically will say stuff like, that's Kira's, Blake. If she doesn't want to share it with you, give it back. You can't
Perfect.
or,
Yeah.
but the problem is we have so much like community property.
Okay. That's what I call it, community property. So
Yeah.
you're doing exactly the right thing with things that belong to one person. They never have to share it if they don't want to, and other people have to ask before they touch it. Perfect. And so you can see how that already is helpful in terms of the rivalry because it's your family rule. Like you're not choosing Kira over Blake. It's just like your family rule is that somebody's thing, then they don't have to share it if they don't want to. And in terms of community property, I would suggest that you have a rule that somebody gets to use something until they're done. Period. Like long turns. There's no, and I didn't know this when my kids were little, and I had ridiculous song and dance with timers, and okay, you can have it for 10 minutes, and then you can have it for 10 minutes, right? But that actually will increase anxiety over like, you want to relax into your play. You don't want to feel like, oh, I've only got this for 10 minutes and then it's going to be taken, right? So if it's something that belongs to everyone, the person who's using it gets to use it for as long as they want. And you empathize with the other person, like, oh, I know your brother's playing with the pogo stick and he's already been doing it for an hour. I know it's so hard to wait, isn't it? When it's your turn, you'll be able to have it for as long as you want. So then you're not that, if you have good sharing rules and community property rules, right off the bat, you are taking away a lot of opportunities for resentment to build up because you're never choosing one person over the other. You're just saying, these are the rules in our family, right? It's not, Blake's using the pogo stick and you're not choosing him over Kira who wants the pogo stick because it's just the rule in your family that, a person gets to use it for as long as they want. And geez, I know it's really hard to wait. So that's the first best practice. Do you have any questions about that?
My biggest question is just how do you intervene when those rules are violated?
Yeah, you just calmly, oh, I know you really, really want to play with the pogo stick. You cannot push your brother off of it because I'm just making things up, but you can't push your brother off of it just because you want to turn. Remember, in our family, and you just go back to the family rules, and you could even like make a sign. Actually, I have a sign I can send to you that you can print out. In our family, we get to use it for as long as we want, and you just empathize with the aggressor about how hard it is to wait, and you just keep harping back to the rules and lots of empathy. And if somebody's being difficult, recognize that they're having a hard time, right? While you're out of the room, Laurel, Derrick said, you hear this, you always and you never. And, whenever you hear words like that, somebody's hijacked by big feelings. And really, don't try to make it a teachable moment. Just empathize with the hard time that they're having right then, and they'll get over it. And it's really just about, nobody ever wants to calm down until they feel empathized with and acknowledged and their feelings are heard. And you can deal with, if you feel like there is something that you need to discuss, you can always talk about it later. But in the moment of heightened tensions and feelings, you just want to, acknowledge somebody's feelings. Oh my goodness, you were doing this thing and then your brother came and took it, and this is so hard, and you wanted the thing. Anyways, there's also, I have a little ebook that has these sort of best practices laid out too, that I'll send you that you can review also. So yeah, it's just basically, you want to think of yourself as and this is sort of the third best practice. You always want to be the moderator. You don't want to be the negotiator. So if there's
Ooh.
a fight happening between the kids, your goal is to help them talk to each other, not for you to try and think of solutions or say who's right or who's wrong. Because every time you intervene and say, like, okay, you do this and you do this, right? If you try and force a solution or bring a solution, even if you're right, even if you're careful to never favor one child over another, you try and be fair, it always will add to sibling rivalry for the person who you didn't choose, right? Even if you're right, they'll just feel like, I'll get him. Or, and the person who you did choose is like, kind of like, oh, dad loves me best, right?
Mm.
So we really want to think about my phrase, I call it is be Switzerland. So
Mm.
you really want to think about being neutral, intervening in a neutral way and helping them talk to each other. So you want to give each child, so say there's a fight over, I don't, do you want to give me like an example and then we can sort of talk through like a real world example?
A lot of times it's not even taking, it's disrupting. So Aubrey has this baby that she's just in love with. She carries it around like it's just really creepy looking. It looks real. And Blake will walk by and like pull the pacifier out of her mouth and just like throw it across the room.
Mm-hmm.
Instant meltdown. And his thing is like, because he knows the rules and he knows how to toe the line. So he's like, I didn't take the baby. I
Mm-hmm.
just disrupted it
Right,
and
right.
deal with it.
Yeah.
So that's maybe a good example.
Yeah. Okay. So that is not really a be Switzerland moment exactly because there's no two-way fight. You know what I mean? Like it's just, he's just done some provocative behavior against his sister, right? To get a rise out of her. I mean, that's so classic, also the classic sibling rivalry. And it sounds like he really worries that you guys don't love him as much as you love his sisters. I don't know if he ever says anything like that. Like, does he outwardly express any sibling fears?
He has sometimes. And then his other big thing is he doesn't have a brother, but they have each other.
Mm-hmm.
He constantly, he'll bring that up. Oh, I don't have a brother.
So let's come back to the Be Switzerland because I want to address a little bit about Blake. So that's what I sort of call a chip on his shoulder. He's got a little chip on his shoulder, right? That he would go by and like provoke his sister by, taking the pacifier out of the baby or whatever. Again, like he's having a hard time. Like he's not a bad kid. He's just like has some feelings inside him that make him a bit provocative. And it's an attempt to, anytime you pick a fight with somebody, it's an attempt to get rid of the feelings that you have that are difficult, right? Like if you've had a bad day, oftentimes we'll come home and, if we haven't dealt with whatever caused us to have the bad day, we might come home and pick a fight with somebody or be, cranky and testy and whatever. It's not about them. It's just about the feelings that we are carrying around that we haven't had a chance to process. So I would have some heart to hearts with Blake, just about, it must be really like maybe when you're tucking him in at night, you give him a chance to process some of these feelings. So you just say something like, geez, I bet it's really hard to have two little sisters and be the only boy. And you wish you had a brother. And just some nice I wonder question. I wonder if it's hard to share me and mom with your sisters and hard to be the oldest. I remember what it was like when I was growing up and how hard it was to be the big sister. And Derek, you might say, I know how hard it was for my older sibling to be the oldest, and he or she felt like my parents always chose the baby, chose me or whatever. Like, so you can weave in a little bit of your own stories to like empathize with him. But the big idea is, and you can, you want to do this with Kira too, with Aubrey, like the same thing. Like, and for Kira, it's like, it must be hard to be in the middle. You've got your big brother and he gets to do these things, and you've got their little sister and we baby her a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like so you want to let them know that they can express their feelings to you and that you'll listen. And so that's the big thing. You want to just open the door for anyone to express hard feelings that they're having, so that they don't have to walk by and pull the pacifier out and do what I call beep disturbing. That's what I used to call it, like that provocative behavior, right?
Yeah.
Because that's really just his fear and his hard feelings coming out and looking for a way out, right? Because it feels uncomfortable to feel that way. So just keep in your head, like, some nice I wonder statements, some nice sharing things from when you were growing up. And you can say to him, I know it must be really hard. Like, I hear you. I get it. This is tough. And I want you to know that you can always talk to me about the feelings that you're having, and all your feelings are okay with me. Like, it, and you have to mean that. You might hear some things like, well, I wish that they didn't even exist. Or I wish that, I wish you never had that baby. And like some hard things to hear, which is totally normal, but resist the urge to feel afraid about it. Resist the urge to say, but sometimes you play so well together. Like, it's not the time for silver linings, right? Like, it's not the time for being optimistic. It's just a time to hear and listen and acknowledge and empathize. And you can also say something like, I'm sorry if I ever said or did anything that made you feel like I didn't love you as much as I love your sister or your brother. I couldn't love anyone more than I love you. So it's just really that. And you can say that equally to all three of your kids without lying, right? I couldn't love anyone more than I love you. So that's really that's the absolute getting to the root of the sibling rivalry, like really making sure they feel that love and not that you don't love the other one more.
That's really helpful. I'd love your insight to like intentions or practices and tell us whether they're good or bad. For me, lately, I've realized I end up spending more time in the girl share room. Blake has his own room. They need more wrangling to go to bed. And Blake, now like self-guided. He can just lay in his bed and read a book.
Yeah.
And so for a long time now, I'd say the last year, I end up in their room reading the girls' book, because they can't read on their own. And then Blake will just put himself to sleep. And so lately I've tried to switch that. So I'll just spend time in Blake's room, reading with him, spend more time with him. We just got a call, but we're each trying to spend time with each kid personally alone. So we'll try to do a mom date or a dad date with each kid. I don't know if that's really
yes.
thing.
No, that's perfect. And that's like my final best practice is one-on-one time. So you're 100% on the right track there in terms of carving out that one-on-one time. It doesn't have to be a date. I'll explain more to Laurel about how you can do that in an easier way. And it was really nice to meet you, Derrick.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Okay, so special time is a really awesome peaceful parenting tool where it's actually, when I send you the Stop Yelling course, there's a bunch of different, like the siblings ebook is in there and the special time guide is in there. And basically it's just 15 minutes a day with each child and it's in your house. Like you don't have to go out to the aquarium or like you just 15 minutes. I'm all yours for the next 15 minutes. What would you like to do? And we try and have it be play centered. What do you want to play for 15 minutes? Try and do no screens, but just like playing something that is in their world.
Yeah. And we tried. And sometimes it does get like what you said, it gets bigger. So it's like every time we say like a mommy date, it has to be something grand.
Yeah. And that makes it hard to do because you're spending money and you've got to get somebody to watch the other kids. And like, it takes a long time. So you really don't have to do, you can do those, but special time is way smaller and more daily, like 15 minutes a day. Yeah. And so maybe
they're guiding it.
Yeah, they're guiding it. And so maybe it's like, I know it's tough with a little one that she probably couldn't leave you alone very well. So you might have it be like on a day when you and Derrick are both home that like Derrick has all the two kids and you take one and you guys like rotate through. Do you know what I mean? Like try and figure out a schedule if you need some support, or maybe you get, hire Blake to watch Aubrey for a few minutes so that you can have some special time with Kira. You may have to get creative about it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I did think of a couple examples. A lot of what frustrates me, like the normal sibling kind of sharing stuff isn't as much of a problem as like when I see them being unkind to each other. I feel like I really harp on them of like, we're family, you have to stick up for each other. You have to be kind. And so it's the unkind comments. For example, this last week they went to surf camp and they both had zinc on their face. So he was orange and she was purple. And we took some neighbors with us. They were fine getting ready and she was so cute she picked out her own clothes, all the things. She was excited that morning. She's just not a morning go-getter usually. So she was bubbly and then he said something unkind about the purple in front of the neighbor friends and laughed. It wasn't like just mentioning it. It was like meant to poke at her. She was devastated. She just sunk. And so I laid into him and I don't want to make him like, I want to be too hard on him, but I do. I was like, you're the protector. You're the big brother. You need to be kind to your sister. And so
what did he say?
I watched her walk out and then I saw him, I saw the like body language, but I think he laughed. He goes, wow, it wasn't a lot, but it was like the laughing, like the ha 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 kind of thing. And then looked and was like, look at her face. So purple or something, but they had just been inside, and it wasn't like oh, this is cool, it's purple. It was like making fun of and putting her in a space where then now the two friends that are with us are laughing too. So then it's like, putting her in a vulnerable spot. Yeah.
So I guess I would say in that sort of situation, I mean, so based on everything that I've said to you before about the resentment and the rivalry, you can probably imagine that coming down hard on him will make him feel bad about himself and worry that you don't love him and resent her even more, right? So that's probably not what you want to do in terms of improving the situation. At the same time, of course, we don't want people going around hurting their siblings' feelings. So I think I would do like what we call empathic limits. So empathic limits are like you've got to set a limit about something of like, it's not okay to tease your sister because that hurts her feelings, but also leading with his point of view so that you can correct him without him feeling like you're saying he's a bad person. So for this situation, you might say something like, "Hey, I know it looks really funny with people have color on their face and that you probably just, thought it was funny or thought it was a funny thing to say. And at the same time, that really made your sister feel bad, right? So you want to try and like, if he really was truly just trying to be funny and wasn't really trying to hurt her, what do you think? Do you think that he was trying to hurt her or do you think?
I think he was. And like they're getting into the age where they have crushes and already 7 to 10. But that'll come into play and they'll say it it's usually in front of friends, right? It's like having ammo of say, well, Kira has a crush on, and saying a secret or
Yeah.
generally they play well and they respect, they know that there's things that you don't say to other people about each other, but they definitely have those as tricks in their bag.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess in that situation, I would have just said to Kira, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that your brother was calling you out like that. Like, it never feels good to have someone laugh at you and just try and like empathize with her and comfort her a bit." And then I might say, like, "Blake, can I just talk to you for a minute?" And I'd say, like, "What's up, buddy? What's going on with you that you wanted to make your sister feel bad?" And just like a lot of empathy for him, like, going at it as in that everybody's doing the best they can idea. Like, you must, what's going on with you that you wanted to make your sister feel bad like that? Like you're worried about it. I mean, and I would be worried about it, like that he feels so low on himself that he wants to make somebody else feel bad, right? And so I would just talk to him from that level. What do you think he would say?
I love that. I think sometimes that's what I'm saying, but I'm not saying it in a peaceful way. So then it's taken, he can't receive it.
Right.
So
You're
then
100% right. Yeah.
Yeah. And his feedback is, am I a bad kid? And he says that. Well, so am I a bad kid? And I'm like, no. And then I'm backtracking and having a great conversation. But it's like that initial, I love that.
So you want to skip the part that makes him feel like a bad kid and just say like,
I want you to know the seriousness of this, but I think they do anyways, and they're kids. So they're not going to feel the weight that I do.
Yeah. And if he's sensitive, like in the fact that he says, "Am I a bad kid?" tells me that he is a sensitive kid. He doesn't need that much correction, right? Like he's already going to be a little bit prone to being like harder on himself and feeling things like a little bit more deeply. So I would just go at it from like a getting curious, like, "Whoa, buddy, like what's going on? Like why'd you say that to your sister?" And just try and get curious about it. I mean, he might say something like, "Oh, well, I was just joking." I'd say, "Well, I think we have to be a little bit more careful with our jokes and make sure they're not at anyone else's expense." Because you can correct him without making him feel like a bad kid, right?
That makes sense. Correcting, not shaming.
Yeah.
Disciplining. We do another thing too. We've tried to, the incessant questions of, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? And you say no, or let me think about it. No, we can't watch a show right now, or no, you can't have this, whatever, or no, we can't go to our friends' home. We started doing it because we were so tired of answering the same question over and over, silly questions, but we started saying, I don't know yet. Let me think about it. But if you ask again, the answer is going to be no. Is that an okay thing?
I think I used to say, if I have to give a quick answer, it's going to be no.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't want to say no as much, but we want, we need to think about it. And
no, that's a great response. And when it does have to be no, I always used to say, and they would ask and ask and ask. And I would say, "You know what? You can ask me as many times as you want. And the answer is still going to be no." Like with lots of empathy. Like they have to really realize like it really is just going to be no. You can keep asking, It really is going to be no. And the other thing I used to say to my kids, which is I used to say, you know what, it would be so much easier for me to say yes, like if it was like screens or sugar or like, whatever, but I love you enough to
Always
say
sugar.
no. Yeah. Like it would be so much easier if I just let you eat as many cookies as you want. It would be so much easier for me. And they could totally see that, right? Like they'd be like, oh yeah, it is harder for parents to have to say no to things than just let kids do whatever they want.
Do you have any feedback of our kids? I mean, they get to do so much. They are busy, and that's part of our personality and our jobs. Just we're go, go, go. We're around people a lot, and pastor a church too. So it's just like, it's a lot, but we are trying to build in more time where they rest and they have time to go and they're kind of bored and do things here. But they often will do something all day, the stuff they pick. And then as we're coming home, it's immediate. It's not, it's like, why do we have to go to bed? Why this? It's no reflection of like, this was really fun. It's
Yeah.
all looking forward to.
That is so normal. Like you could go to an amusement park all day and then get like pizza for dinner and then ice cream and then go to a movie and then you say no to one thing and they're like, why? You're so mean. We never get to do anything fun.
Yeah.
Right?
It's almost like the more you do, the more you get. It's like
that is so normal. I mean, kids are really hardwired to want more, right? Because evolutionarily, a quiet child who doesn't clamor for things is not going to get their needs met. Do you know what I mean? Like you get left on a rock somewhere if you're not noisy about who you are and what you need. So it's really okay. Like wanting is not a problem. And it's okay if they want things. It doesn't mean they're going to turn into horrible, entitled people. And it's okay if they forget about all of the other good things that they just had because you said no to the final thing of the fantastic day. Kids really live in the moment. They're fixated on like that ice cream that you've just said no to, when even though they've had all of the other things. So just stay in the moment with them. Oh, you really wanted ice cream. I know. It's so disappointing that we're not having it. And resist the urge to say, but we already did this and we already did that, because they're in the moment, right? Like they're in that moment and they don't have perspective yet on the bigger picture.
I love that. That's great. We started singing the Greatest Showman song, Never Be Enough.
Yeah.
And now they hate that song. So that's like the first thing that comes to my mind. It's like, oh my goodness, you guys, nothing. It's like, we can't win. Nothing's ever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love that.
But
and
it's
you're
okay.
Right. Kids are hardwired that way.
Yeah.
But I do learn, so much from just bringing it back to peaceful, no fear parenting. Kind of, that's my desire. And I can be really hard on myself too. And I see that in my kids too. And I don't want that. But just always critiquing about the things that could have gone better that day, parenting wise. And
well, that's not helpful, Laurel.
Trying to be graceful too. But yeah, so it's been good to have some tools, different things to say and think about.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of being hard on yourself, if you don't want your kids to be hard on themselves, it really starts with you modeling the graciousness of like, oh, I messed up. I'm still worthy and lovable. And it's really letting those two ideas exist together, because being hard on yourself is when you only feel worthy and lovable when you've not done anything wrong, you haven't made mistakes, you haven't messed up. And we really, really want to teach our kids that they're worthy and lovable no matter what, right? Even when they mess up, even when they're doing things to mess with their siblings, they're still worthy and lovable. They're having a hard time. They're not giving us a hard time. That's what true self-worth is, right? True self-worth is not dependent on what you do. It's just that you are yourself. And that's what lets us take risks in life, is if we're not afraid to mess up, we're not afraid to fail, because we feel like our self-worth isn't dependent on that, right? That idea of like, well, I can only do things if I do them well, keeps us small. And so we really have to not attach our self-worth to what we do and not be hard on ourselves when we mess up. And that's what our kids are going to learn from, our modeling of that.
That makes sense.
And I've never, ever seen anyone do this work without being compassionate with themselves. Like you can't beat yourself up and be a peaceful parent.
Yeah. I know, because then I'd see them doing it. It's like, no, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Purposely don't want you guys to be that way. Yeah, that's great. Those are all good things to think about. I think the other questions I can tie back to what you already answered, like being disrespectful or sassiness is kind of creeping in, the talking back kind of stuff. And that's all from, it stems from not feeling heard, not feeling like empathized with, and
totally. And being hijacked by big feelings. And even if it's your own big feelings of not getting what you want, right? That can be overwhelming. send them into fight, flight, or freeze, which is the
Mm.
sassiness and back talk is the fight
Mm.
of fight, flight, or freeze. And it's just the mild fight, right? They're not screaming or hitting or kicking, but just having the rude talk.
Mm. And so same response as a parent with that too, is just be in the moment with their feelings and then move on to talking about why and letting them kind of,
Yeah. Yeah. And empathizing, just like, oh, you're really, say they're like saucy about you won't let them have some ice cream or whatever. Never let me have ice cream. This is so unfair. You're so mean. Or I don't know what they would say, but I know it's so hard. You wish you could have all the ice cream in the freezer. You would eat the whole
Yeah.
carton if you could. And just recognize that it doesn't have to be, a teachable moment about sugar or whatever. You just be with them in their hard time that they're having about not getting what they want, and they'll get through to the other side, which builds resilience.
How do you discipline when it's needed and not punish, but discipline?
Give me an example.
Like a deliberate rule is broken or somebody gets hurt or stealing or I don't like a thing that's like a no, I know I did this wrong. Like what kind of
Well, you want to help them see how their actions affect other people or property or a community, right? Like that's where they're going to internalize right and wrong. Say somebody breaks something or potentially breaks a rule and you give them a punishment. That's just going to teach them not how their actions affect other people, but how their actions affect them, right? That teaches kids like what's in it for me. Like, oh, I better not do this thing because I don't want to get in trouble. Not, I better not do this thing because my parents will be disappointed that I broke the house rule, or I better not do this thing because it will hurt my sister, right? So anytime we come in with like a punishment or a consequence, it leads a child away from the true consequences of their actions, right? Like that somebody's hurt or parents are disappointed. So you really want to help them understand like, hey, the reason why we have this rule in place is because of X, Y, or Z. And when you did this, this is what happened. And, if you have a problem with this rule, we need to talk about it ahead of time because we really want to hear what you think. We want to work together as a family. It doesn't work for you to just go off doing your own thing because this is what happened. Or maybe because, dad and I feel like we can't trust you and we need to be able to trust you. You're getting older. You're going to be going out on your own. And we have to know that you're going to be where you say you're going to be. Like as he's moving into the tween and teen years, right? He's going to be getting more independence. So, I think really just managing ourselves and our reaction of like the upset of a rule being broken, but then really just helping a child, what the problem was with what they did and then how they can fix it is so much more effective than a consequence.
We had an incident at church where our 10-year-old was talking about something inappropriate with another kid. And so that parent reached out and it was I feel like we handled it okay. And we talked with him. He's open about that. And we talked kind of what was said. And then we had apologized to that parent in person and had a conversation. And it didn't feel like you forcing him to do something bad or that we made him, didn't tell him it was wrong. Or just like, this is what we need to do.
Right.
Responsibility.
To try and make it right, to do a repair.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always what we want to, it's always what we want to focus on as repair. Without knowing the whole situation, I'm not sure I would have said apologizing to the parent, but what did the parent have to do with it? I don't know. But really truly think of like sometimes parents will suggest an apology, but and I'm not saying that you're doing this, but to try and make somebody feel a little bit ashamed or like embarrassed or something to make them remember it so that they won't do it again. But we have to always think like, am I asking for that child to make a repair or an apology because it actually like helps the situation? So I guess that's the thing to keep in mind. What's the outcome I'm looking for here? And what would truly repair the situation, if anything?
You're right.
I mean, maybe in this case, like, I'm not sure what was said, but maybe like you apologizing to the parent and saying, we've talked to our son about this. It won't be happening again. We're truly sorry for the discomfort that it caused your family. But if your son was willing to apologize and you seemed like it went well, then that's great.
Yeah. And we're bad. Well, thanks for all your wisdom.
You're welcome. It was really nice to meet you both.
Let's take a quick break to hear about the Yoto Player. Yoto is a new sponsor of our podcast. I only promote products that I really believe in, and Yoto is a great product. I wish they were around when my kids were growing up. Yoto is a screen-free audio player for kids. It uses physical cards to play stories, music, podcasts, and other audio content, encouraging independent listening and play. You can buy the cards for your favorite books, from the classics like Charlotte's Web or Roald Dahl, or newer books like Captain Underpants. You can also make your own cards of podcast stories or music from MP3 files. Yoto also creates original content like radio and podcasts for kids. The possibilities for listening are varied and endless. Yoto also features a nightlight, an okay to wait clock, and other functions like white noise and an alarm. It's not connected to the internet, so kids can't go where you don't want them to go, and no one is listening in on them. And did I mention it's screen-free? I learned about Yoto from Corey. Here's what she says. The Yoto player is by far my favorite parenting tool that I've ever purchased, and I recommend them to everyone who has kids. They're an amazing screen-free audiobook player that have been an absolute lifesaver for teaching my kids to play independently. Both my kids carried their Yoto players around the house, listening to books while drawing, doing Lego, and even relaxing in their rooms before bed. We also take Yoto players everywhere with us, short or long car trips, sporting events, restaurants, and even doctor's appointments. On a recent vacation, their Yoto players got them through an 8-hour drive and were used every evening in our hotel to help my kids relax after very busy days. Yoto has an impressive and ever-growing collection of books you can buy and have absolutely helped inspire a love of reading in both my kids. Thanks for the first-hand recommendation, Corey. And I also just want to highlight that you don't have to buy their books. You can buy blank cards and record your own content. To learn more, visit reimaginepeacefulparenting.com/Yoto. That's reimaginepeacefulparenting.com/Yoto, YOTO. I hope you check them out, and I'm just so happy to have them on as a sponsor for the podcast. Remember, for an ad-free version of this podcast, become our supporter on Substack. Search up Sarah Rosensweet and Substack, and you'll find us. Let's get back to the podcast. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Laurel and Derrick. Yeah, it's really nice to see you again. How have things been since our first coaching call?
Yeah, I feel like we gained several really good nuggets that we were able to try. One of them, we talked about my daughter in the morning, not wanting to get dressed and kind of feeling stuck in the middle and left out. And so there's been several instances where I've gotten to just stop what I'm doing and pay attention to her, even just this morning. And even though it's, she's still throwing a meltdown, it made things go faster by the end time instead of me being stubborn, telling her to do things on her own. So
you dropped your end of the power struggle.
Yeah. What do you think?
How did that feel?
It felt great because I wasn't frustrated after. And so I felt like I could move on to the next thing right away instead of me having a blow up too.
Mm-hmm.
So if both blew up, then it's not a good thing. But when she's the only one, then she can snap out of it super fast, but I can't. And so a lot of times it would leave me, feeling I would take a longer time to get out of those things. So yeah, those were great. And we've had some really challenging parenting moments even this week. And so looking at it through a lens of making our kids feel worthy and loved was really cool. And I feel like we responded differently to those things. One of the things you said last time we talked was the perpetrator needs empathy. Really me, because I always feel like they need to be come down hard on or make them feel your wrath, kind of like to make you feel how serious this is. And we were able to love our kids, 2 of them, through instances this week that I think we did things differently than we would have normally. So.
I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways from our last chat was just the whole kindling metaphor. And I've even shared that with a couple of buddies and they're like, oh, that's really good. And so just recognizing, I thought, before our chat, I just thought, I'm being really patient. But I wasn't. I'm just picking up kindling. And then boom, it gets lit and it's like uncontrollable in terms of, you do the stuff you say you won't do, yell at your kids. So just recognizing like, that's a piece of kindling. I need to set that back down, whatever that means, whether it's take a deep breath or even just tell the kids, like I did it this morning on the way to the soccer tournament. Like they just flipped their switch from a meltdown to like, let's play a game, and they're like, do you want to play the game? I'm like, I actually don't want to play the game right now. I just need a minute to myself. I'll play with you in a minute, but I just need to have my own little pity party here in the front seat. I didn't blame them for it or tell them you did this, but it just was, I'm going to set some kindling down,
Fantastic. You recognize that you needed to actually calm yourself before you could re-engage with them. instead of just continuing at that point where you were like already a little bit like starting to get a little bit annoyed.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, we had some questions too, like moving forward, like past some of those things. We scratched the surface a little bit, talking about letting kids feel natural consequences and kind of what that looks like. Then I feel like life just threw us two challenges and was like, okay, here you go, try it out. And parts of them were instances where we knew our kids were lying about something significant, and we just needed them to tell us the truth. And we even told them, we know what it is. We love you. We just need you to develop this muscle of truth telling. We want to walk you through this. And both of them have just been denying for days. One of them, Blake, oldest one, for days, and the other one, for at least a day, until they finally go, okay, and just give in, or we give them space to think about it. And so we were just wondering, what can we do as a parent to be kind of a safe space to encourage truth telling and to encourage open communication?
Well, I think that the two reasons why kids lie is one, they're afraid of getting in trouble, or two, they're embarrassed or ashamed about what they did and they wish they could walk it back. So they don't really want to admit that they did that. And sort of related to that is that they're afraid you're going to be disappointed in them, right? So I think it's thinking about maybe all three of those at the same time. So we might be unhappy with you about whatever it is that you did. And no matter what, we'll just focus on trying to fix it, right? We'll focus on really trying to focus on the repair, I think is helpful. Like, what can we do? So this thing happened. What can we do to make this better? I'm so glad that you told me. And I think that's another big part of it too, is really saying like, I'm so glad you told me about this. I'm just going to make something up since I don't know what it was that took $10 out of your pocketbook or something like that. And you know that they did. And then they finally come and tell you, I would talk about, we need to be able to trust each other as you're like getting more freedom. I think we talked about that, right? Like going forward in life, being able to want to go to your buddy's house. We have to know you are going to be where you say you're going to be. And I might not be happy about whatever you did, but no matter what, I'll always love you. And I'll always still think you're a good person, even if you made a mistake, because everybody makes mistakes. It's sort of similar to what we talk about in peaceful parenting of empathic limits, which is letting somebody know even as you have to correct them or tell them you're unhappy with something that they did, that you still think they're a good person. So that takes away the shame bit. And I really think also not doing consequences. Like you mentioned natural consequences, and just for everybody to be on the same page, a natural consequence happens with no involvement from you. So if your kid took money out of your wallet, the natural consequence would be that, well, you don't have the $10 anymore, and that you maybe feel that your trust has been broken a little bit, right? Like that would be the natural consequence. But we have to be really careful to not pile on consequences or punishments on top of that, because that just teaches kids, well, I better hide it better next time, right?
How would you frame the difference between a consequence and just boundaries? So like if they made a bad decision in a certain environment, not letting them back into that environment for a while or whatever, is that a consequence or is that a boundary? And
so in peaceful parenting, we talk about limits. So say they made a bad decision in a certain environment, and you might think, you know what, I don't think you're ready for that level of freedom, or you're not ready for that environment right now. This thing happened. Everybody makes mistakes. Mom and I understand that this was really hard, and it's really hard to think in the moment of what the right thing to do, or maybe your friends were telling you to do this thing and maybe part of you knew it was wrong, but you didn't know how to back out of it with your friends or whatever the situation is, right? So we're going to help you by setting a limit that we're not going to let you be in that situation anymore for a while. So the difference between a limit and a consequence is a limit is to help your child with an expectation that you have, right? That they don't break the family rules, or they don't do things that are unkind, or like whatever the thing is. So sometimes you do need to set a limit to help them if you feel that they can't manage that on their own. And a consequence is to make them feel bad so that they won't do it again. Does that make sense? Like, so a consequence is like, I'm going to make you suffer. And of course, no parent ever thinks I'm going to make you suffer, but that's really like, I'm going to take away your iPad, or I'm going to do this thing or whatever to make you feel bad so that you won't do the thing again. That's a punishment, right? It's not about supporting the expectation. It's about causing a measure of pain so that they won't do the thing again.
That's
So the two things that I always tell parents to check if you're not sure if it's a limit or a consequence
are your tone and your intent. So if you're angry and dysregulated when you're trying to set a limit, your tone will feel punishing to your child, even if you're not trying to punish them, right? So your tone has to be like kind and empathetic. And maybe that means, you know what? We're going to talk about this tomorrow. I'm like feeling pretty upset about the thing that happened. So we're going to talk about this tomorrow when I've had a chance to cool off, right? No action. And if you find yourself like, in the heat of the moment and you haven't had a chance, you haven't been able to stop yourself, you can always say, when I said that last night, I was really angry and I've had some time to think about that, consequence that I gave you or the punishment that I gave you. And I don't want to do that. We need to talk about this in a different way, right? So if you haven't given yourself the time, you can walk it back, because we always want people to feel like they can take responsibility for things that they did when they were triggered, right? Like even if your kid, like, if one of your kids says or does something mean to the other kid when they're angry, you want them to be able to say like, hey, look, I was really angry and I didn't mean that. And I'm sorry that I did that. And I'd like to take it back, right? So your tone is kind and empathetic, even if you have to take some time to get back to that place. And your intent is not to make anyone feel bad. It's just to support whatever the expectation is.
Good. That's really helpful. I think sometimes just understanding, even sometimes when we are in the purest of senses trying to set some limits, then we beat ourselves up because it feels like, oh, well, that feels like a consequence. And vice versa. You're given a consequence and you feel like, well, I'm just trying to set limits. No, you really are trying to make them feel the wrath,
Mm-hmm.
I like your metrics around, what's your intent and what's your tone. That's really good. Unrelated to that, another really helpful tool that we talked about last time was the sibling rivalry of, hey, it's theirs until they're done with it. I've used that a couple of times this week. Amazing. It's like a miracle. It's like, we know they get, they only keep it because the other sibling wants it. And as soon as they don't want it, they set it down and forget about it. So that's been helpful, especially in the car.
Yeah, I know last time we talked, you said that the driving could be a challenge with the kids fighting.
Yeah.
What would be just some good mantras that you use that when you feel like it's hard going through the things that your kids do, not letting it define me as a person or us as a family, and getting into this space faster, I guess, of like they're developing and they're working on themselves. And
So what you're talking about is shame. Like, oh my God, my kid did this thing. This person is now going to think horribly of not only of my child, but of me and like my parenting skills. So the shame is when you feel unworthy and unlovable, right? And so what we have to do is separate out our worthiness as a person from A, what other people think of us, and B, our achievements or lack thereof, right? Like you might have like your kid like having the worst behavior in the world, for a week straight, and you're still a good person, right? You have to separate out like that your worthiness is not dependent on your children's actions, right? Or even on your actions. Like you can mess up like crazy and you're still a worthy and lovable person.
it's almost saying the same thing we say to our kids. It's like, Laurel, you are worthy and lovable. Our families. That could be, a simple.
That's what I was just going to say, 100%. So what you say, like you get the phone call from your friend who says your child's just done this awful thing. And part of you just wants to like, go into the shame spiral. Like, oh my, they're judging me. Like I'm no good. I'm a terrible parent. If, I'm a terrible parent, I must be a terrible person. And all of a sudden, boom, you're like in the basement of that shame spiral, right? So when you feel yourself starting to go there, you can say to yourself, even though I just got this phone call from my friend, and even though my child did this thing, I am still worthy and lovable. So it's being able to hold both of those things together in your mind. Even though I'm really embarrassed about whatever just happened and my friend might be judging me, I'm still worthy and lovable. Those two things have to be able to exist together.
Mm-hmm. It's
Love
good.
that. Yeah, I think to circle back with Kira's thing too in the whole mornings is, so school's starting in 2 days, 1 day almost. And we have this like, oh no, like is every morning going to be like this? I can't get dressed. I can't do this. And it moves from one thing to another. It's not just the dresses. Then it's, well, can you get my socks for me? And then don't go downstairs without me. And then you poured me the wrong cereal. And then she's totally fine when she gets in the car and wants to play like a fun family game, like he was saying this morning. So we're like, we want to know how in the quiet and the still moments when she's not frustrated, how do we help her kind of set her own boundaries of what mornings can look like?
It sounds like she gets anxious at the transition times.
Yes.
Would you agree?
And
That's what's
and when we're running behind, or we got to be gone in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
she doesn't do well
we
with
need an hour, you know? So
she doesn't do being hurried.
hurry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hurry.
So she feels anxious. And then, when we're anxious, it's a overwhelm of our own feelings. And as humans, when we get overwhelmed, we go into fight, flight, or freeze. So it sounds like she goes a little bit into the fight mode, maybe, like lashing out a little bit, like being a little bit challenging and difficult. So is that what you're sort of experiencing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And she's always been our one. If we got late, if we were late to a practice or gymnastics or even to school, like if we're there right on time, it's late for her. And she just draws right away.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so we know that about her. And I think, it's more of our expectations than I guess that we need to make boundaries of waking up an hour early instead of 30 or 40 minutes or,
Yeah, I mean, for sure, tweaking your routine so that it works a little bit better for her so she has more time. Like some kids just really need a lot of time in the morning to, slowly get ready for the day. And other kids can like roll out of bed and get dressed and run out the door. So that's part of it. But also a big part of it that you want to help her with for her resilience over time is, we can handle this, right? Like that's the anti-anxiety phrase. Like no matter this might not be going the way that you hoped it would go. You didn't have quite enough time to play the games that you wanted to play in your room before we were leaving. And you can handle this, right? We can do hard things.
We use that one a lot.
Yeah, I think it's just recognizing, okay, so she's hijacked by some anxiety. You want to think of in terms of like soothing and building resilience. Like, hey, I see, empathizing. I see you're really feeling, I don't know what you would say in the moment because I don't know exactly what's going on, but you're feeling a little rushed here. And it always stresses you out when we feel like we're going to be late, that it's just tough for you. I get that. And you know what? Even if we were 5 minutes late, we could handle it. We'd figure it out. I think also, though, we want to remember about the benefits of laughter. And so maybe doing some laughing with her in the morning to sort of just help ease some of that tension would be helpful. And also, you were talking about like, oh my gosh, is every morning am I going to have to do all these things for her? Maybe you just set that expectation for yourself that, you might have to spend 10 minutes like getting her dressed and, just giving her that gift, right? But also, I think last time we talked about if it's annoying or you don't have time, look for other ways in the day that you might be able to build up that nurturing so that she doesn't ask for it when it's hard for you.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for thinking about us too for a second round. And
yeah, you're welcome. I had a lot of fun talking to you, and I haven't had any dads come on yet.
awesome.
I love
Well,
that.
nice to meet you, and have a great rest of your weekend.
All right,
Thanks,
you
you
too,
too.
Sarah.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.